Girl, it is time for us to start making our own wigs and saving some money. So today's video is all about me teaching you guys the beginner steps on how to make your own wigs. And with today's video, part one, I'm going to show you guys how to sew on your closure onto your dome cap. So if you guys are interested in learning how to make your own wig, definitely stay tuned to the series. And yeah, so we'll be right back, my babies. What's up, my wealthy babies? We are back with another video. Now, y'all already heard that this video is all about me showing you guys the beginner steps on how to make your own wigs. Now, I want to start this series because wigs are becoming expensive, and I want to go back to what I used to do, was making my own wigs. And I wanted to teach you guys how to make your own, because not everybody is going to pay $800 for a wig. I always say that. Now here I'm showing you guys the dome cap that I like to use. I usually prefer to use a mesh dome cap. I don't like a dome cap that's not mesh, because when it comes to wig, you gotta remind yourself, you want your wig to be breathable. You don't want to, it's summertime, we don't want to deal with no hot shit, okay? So definitely get you a mesh dome cap, and this is what I'm showing you right here. Now, for those who don't know what a dome cap is, it's basically the foundation for making our wigs. This is what we use to sew on the bundles and our frontals. But usually I like to use a black dome cap so for my black bundles of hair, but they also do have blonde dome caps for blonde wigs at the beauty supply store. So keep that in mind. You might be wondering why I have line marks on my mannequin head, and this is for me to have the correct placement on where I'm placing my dome cap. When it comes to your mannequin head, you have to have the right measurements for your head. So yes, you do have to measure the size of your head. If that's something that you guys want me to demonstrate for you guys, so you'll know how to get the right mannequin size for your head, so you'll make sure your wig is not too big or too small for you, I will definitely make that video. Just leave a comment below and I'll definitely make that video happen for you guys. But overall, the placement of the dome cap is very important. Right here, I'm showing you guys the tag on the back of the dome cap, because this shows that this will be in the back and not the front. I have came across some dome caps that does not have a tag on the back of them. But how I knew what was the front and the back of the dome cap, the back of the dome cap, the lines are a little bit more narrower. It's close together compared to the front of the dome cap. The lines are a little bit more spaced apart. So that's how you know which is the front and the back of the dome cap. So definitely keep that in mind if you come across a mesh dome cap and you don't know what's the front versus the back of it. Putting on the dome cap can be a little frustrating, because it might seem like the dome cap is too small for your mannequin head, but girl, just stretch it out, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna pin the dome cap to the mannequin head. It's gonna stretch, trust me. It might seem like it's a little small. No, stretch that dome cap out. I always make sure that I'm pinning the back of the dome cap where the line is on the back of my mannequin head. Now usually what I use to pin my dome caps is T-pins. You will see me use it a lot during the process of making wigs. So that is a supply that you definitely need. It's T-pins. They're cheap. I think they're like literally $1 at the beauty supply store. But just remember, all the things that I'm using in this video will be linked in my Amazon storefront. I'm going to show you guys a trick that I usually do to make sure the placement of the front of my dome cap is correct. Now, when it comes to the mannequin head, there are 3 lines that I'm going to show you. There's 2 on the side and 1 in the middle. Okay, so you see right here that I'm showing you, that is the first line. And then that's the second line that's on the side right there. And then obviously you can see that there's 1 in the middle. Now the 2 lines that's on a dome cap, that has to be in between the 2 lines on the mannequin head. That's how you know you have the right placement for your dome cap. Here's the closure that I'll be using today. It is a 4x4. It has a HD lace, and I actually got this at my local beauty supply store. It was on sale for like $20, and I got a deal that day. So this is also a 10-inch closure as well. Now it's time to lay this closure down onto the dome cap. Now, to make sure the placement is right, lay the closure down straight between the two lines that was on the dome cap. After you do that, make sure the hairline of the closure is 1 inch in front of the dome cap, as you see here. Now just lay it here flat, just so you could pin it up and you'll know, okay, this is where I want my closure to be. Now it's time to secure the back of this closure. So to make sure that the placement of this closure is right, I make sure the side of the closure is over that line you see right there. That black line on a dome cap is a no-no. You do not sew on that line, because you will have to start over your whole entire wig, because you will mess up the dome cap. So I suggest put the closure 1 inch over that line, and I just pinned it to make sure that this is the place where I will be sewing my closure. I have pinned down my closure, and I just want to show you guys how the closure should look on the dome cap before I start the sewing process. So now it's time to get into the sewing part. So the thread that I like to use is a knee-lying, non-lying thread. I'm probably saying it wrong, but that's okay. I got this at my local beauty supply store, but this will also be linked in my Amazon storefront. This type of thread is best to use because it's thick, and it also can hold your closure and your bundles in place. It's not like the regular thread that you use when you're sewing. Do not use that. That's a hot mess. It will break. I tried it before, just don't do it. And also, I'm using a curved needle. You cannot use a straight needle for this process. Use a curved needle in order to sew your wig. If you're someone who haven't ever learned how to sew before, definitely clothes when you was younger, I suggest for you to learn how to, because hand sewing a wig is not easy. It's definitely a tough process, but I'm going to show you guys a quick basic on what you need to do to make sure your needle or thread is ready to sew your wig. So let's get into that. This step is real easy. Put the thread in a needle hole. Now, sometimes it takes a couple of tries because the thread is a little stubborn, but I usually just wet the tips of the thread so it can go through the needle hole quickly. And also, I clip the ends of the thread and tie a knot at the end of the thread so I can get ready to sew my wig. While sewing your closure, make sure that you're sewing through the skin like you see right there. That is the skin. You do not want to sew through the band because you will mess up your whole entire wig. We're not putting a needle through that part of the wig. No. You only put the needle through the skin of the band. So I'm going to show you how I start off my closure. So like I said, we're sewing through the skin. We're not sewing through the band. We're not doing that. No, that's a no-no. As you see, I'm putting a needle through the skin part of the dome cap into my closure. Now, where I start when I'm sewing, I'm literally start at a 1/2 inch away from the the end of the dome cap. I don't start directly on the tip of the dome cap because when you're completely done with the wig, you're going to see that thread, and we don't want that thread to be visible. So I start literally a 1/2 inch away from the tip of the dome cap. Once the needle is in, I am pulling the thread through. But with the hand that I'm not holding a needle with, I'm making sure that I'm supporting the end of the threads so I can make sure my stitching is tight and neat. That's one common mistake I ran into a lot in my beginner stage of making my own wigs. When I wasn't supporting my thread, sometimes I experienced unnecessary knotting in the thread, and that shit was a headache, I promise you. And I had to constantly start over. So it's also important to make sure your thread is tight, because you want to make sure your closure is tight onto your dome cap. You don't want a loose closure, because that's just going to mess up the whole process of your wig, and it won't look right. So make sure you're sewing tightly, but not too tight that you create a hole in your closure. Sewing is all about patterns. So what you're going to see me do during this whole process is a fence type of pattern that I always use to make sure I'm securing down my closure. I wish I could go into deep details on how I create this type of knotting during my sewing process, but basically what I am doing is just putting the thread behind the needle, and it creates a knot. So if you just watch carefully, you'll kind of get it as I go. But that's the best way I can explain how I create this fencing knot pattern. As you see here, I'm putting the needle through the skin of the dome cap and my closure, but while I'm doing it, I'm making sure the thread is behind the needle, and I just pull the needle through and it creates a knot. So that's kind of how I do the fencing pattern during the process of knotting. So I'm going to show you guys again how I created this fencing pattern knot, but I'm just going to slow it down so you guys can get it and just see how I create this pattern while I'm sewing. Don't mind that my camera isn't focusing right now, but I wanted to come in and remind you guys not to sew on that black line on a dome cap that I told you about earlier. Since we're not sewing on that black line, I'm going to show you what I do instead of avoiding this part, because I know this part can be confusing, but all I basically do is I still sew on the mesh part. There's a mesh right in front of that black line, and I just put my needle through and put it through my closure, and I keep sewing. You know, just because I said don't sew on a black line doesn't mean you just skip this part. No, sew on the mesh part of the dome cap. Always make sure you sew on the mesh part of the dome cap, so your dome cap won't be tight and make your wig smaller. So that's it. That's all. I just want to show y'all that real quick. When you're sewing the back of your closure, you will run across moments where your closure is not flat like it was before. Don't keep sewing. just stop what you're doing, take your T-pins out and make your closure flat again. That's it. And then you will begin your process with sewing all over again. But having gaps like that will definitely mess up your closure, because when it's time to put your wig on, you're going to see those lumps in your lace. So just take the time out to just make your closure flat again, and you'll be good. So I'm putting a knot here because I will not be sewing downwards on the side of this closure. I'm gonna on the side of the closure, I'm gonna be sewing the same way as I did on the other side. So I'm just putting a knot here real quick. I'm sewing up the other side of the closure. You guys can just watch me finish this up, and once I'm done, I'll be right back to end the video. Alright, my babies, that is it for this video. We have completed sewing in this closure. This is part 1, so definitely stay tuned for next week's video so I can show you guys how I sew on the bundles, and then we'll be done with this wig. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said before, all the stuff that I use will be linked below and also in my Amazon storefront. But like always, leave your comments down below, give this video a thumbs up, and y'all already know, if you aren't subscribed, then what the fuck are you doing? You missing out on some good ass content, girl. So thank you for watching, and bye, my babies.